So the night my husband admitted to having an affair, it was just the day after he pocket dialed me from his date. And I was blown away. I was floored. I didn't know. I was numb. I was numb, but I was also angry. I was angry at him because we had just gotten married in front of our parents. And I just remember my mom's face, how proud she looked and happy she seemed for me. Just happy that I finally married the person that was right for me. And I was so angry that he had let it get to a point where we did this with our parents, knowing full well that he was not doing right by me and not being honest with himself, which is even worse. So I was just frustrated because it was like, what was that? Like, what was the point of all of that? Like, why did you even marry me if you didn't want to? So I was a little bit confused and just kind of like, what is wrong with this man? And why go through all of that? Like, don't you have any shame? Or like, why did you marry me? And he just, it was interesting because he said to me, I thought I could make it work. And I'm like, make it work? Like, you just started an affair 4 months before we got married, and you're telling this woman you didn't want to marry me. And it just, to me, was just like, you should be with her. Like, if this is something that compels you to cheat on me, with this, this passionate, situation, you should be with this person. Because the other thing that was happening, was that we hadn't been intimate for years. And I know that may sound really crazy and strange for many people, but that also was something that happened gradually. And it wasn't something that I didn't realize was unusual. And I did broach the subject with my partner over several years, just not in a way to make him feel uncomfortable, but kind of to acknowledge the fact that we weren't being intimate, but to also address any concerns in that, it was something that stood out to me because I'd never experienced that in any other relationship, but it wasn't the reason I was there with him. So I wanted to assure him that I wanted it to be addressed, as far as acknowledging that this was unusual in a healthy relationship, but that it wasn't something that I thought was a major issue for me, at least, especially if, there was something else going on. And over the years, we, had talked about it, and he had offered, many explanations, none of which were, I'm not into you, I'm not attracted to you. It was nothing about me, that he mentioned. And I was pretty much in shape the entire relationship, kept up my routine. I'm not hyper into manicures and pedicures all the time and getting my hair done, but just general maintenance and hygiene, of course, and dressing up and doing things. And so I knew that it wasn't me, because although we weren't having a sexual relationship, there did seem to be quite a bit of affection in other ways. So we cuddled, we'd hug, he would kiss me on my lips, but that would be it, be like a kiss on the lips, on the forehead. The way he was with me, and the way that we were together was very playful. There was affection and love and care, but it wasn't sexual, if that makes sense. And that was okay for me because I really enjoyed the companionship and the connection we had. And I thought we had this crazy, bond. And I had never been a sexual person, super sexual person. Sex was something like take it or leave it. It comes with relationships, but sex is not one of those things that I crave. So I guess one could call me asexual. I don't know, or demisexual, or I don't know what the name is for it, but unlike many people that I know, sex was not and is not something that is really high on my list of priorities. So I just want to make that clear, and acknowledge that sex is not always the most important thing for every relationship and for every person. It just, in my situation, it just wasn't. And I actually thought that my partner was somewhat equally yoked. So, among some of the things that he had brought up about the sexual intimacy that we lacked, was, body image issues. He had gained some weight in the relationship, and he claimed that he was self-conscious about that. And, he's a body type that kind of accumulates excess weight around his midsection. So I think he was just kind of self-conscious about that. And then the next stage of his reasoning was he was stressed out. And of course, as I had said, we had started working together, and there's just a lot of business to be done. And starting a business is a lot of work. And he was primarily responsible for the business development. And so he was drumming up business and trying not to fail and just doing the best he could, as an entrepreneur. And I think he was doing a great job, but that seemed to be incredibly stressful for him, or that's what I thought at the time. And then the next excuse was, we live together, and so, I get less excited about sex because I see you every day. And so I was like, okay. And he's like, this has happened before in my past relationship, so this happens every time. And I'm like, okay, well, is that an issue? Like, do I need to be concerned about this? And then at some point I did ask him if he was attracted to me, or, if there was a possibility that he had same-sex attraction, because he just didn't seem to be aroused at all around me. I could, walk by naked. And I wouldn't do that to do anything. I never initiated because I was kind of respectful of the situation, because it wasn't something that I actually felt like I needed. I just knew that it was unusual for a couple that didn't have any children and that hadn't been together an extremely long time to not be having sexual intercourse on a somewhat regular basis. So that was kind of how our sexual intimacy relationship just kind of dissipated, and it started waning. And to be honest, it was never a satisfying exchange from the very first encounter, the first sexual encounter. It just was anticlimactic, and it wasn't the thing that kept us together, and it wasn't anything that drew me to him or made me attracted to him. So the lack of sex didn't really bother me. It was just something that I did notice was unusual, and I did address it. This I've subsequently learned, the withholding of sex is a major form of emotional abuse. And there were times where I would get dolled up and dressed up, or I would even get my hair done, and we would meet, and he wouldn't even say anything about it. And then he would maybe like at the end of the night would go, "Oh, you had your hair done." And so things like that would happen quite a bit. And I didn't take it personally, because I kind of liked the fact that he didn't fixate on my physical beauty. And that was something growing up and in my day-to-day life I have to deal with men. And it's not really something that I like. So while it was unusual to not get that type of validation and attention from my partner, it didn't make me feel unloved or unwanted. It just made me feel like he saw me as a human being, like an equal. But it would have been nice to have had compliments, acknowledgement of my attractiveness, because everyone else seemed to acknowledge it. And it was almost like he was withholding, maybe because he thought everyone else did. And it was some power play. I'm not sure. But I know that when he got dressed or he looked nice, I would always say, "You look so handsome," or "You look great," or "I love your outfit." And he would do it occasionally. I'm not saying he starved me of every single opportunity to feel attractive, but I did notice that in our relationship there was a lack of acknowledgement of something that was obvious. So my attractiveness was diminished. And luckily that's not how I value myself. So it didn't harm my self-esteem, but I did notice it because I just had never experienced that in a relationship. I'd always been with people that, and men that wasn't the only thing they were interested in, but they could certainly acknowledge when I looked nice, or if they thought I was beautiful, it would be said at some point. And I just don't recall him ever saying that he thought I was beautiful. And I don't understand that. And, I know that he thinks I'm attractive. So, and he acknowledges it sometimes in therapeutic settings. And, but yeah, it was an odd experience being with someone who stopped having sex with me, didn't initiate it, didn't seem to really notice when I was dressed up, and I would walk into a room and men and women would give me compliments, and he wouldn't. So it was odd, and then, but I never thought it was a problem. But now that I'm looking back, those were all red flags and signs that something was slightly awry. So that's my share for today. And yeah, I'm still working things through, but thank you for letting me share and for allowing me to share and for listening. Take care.